Hey y'all, welcome back to Hopeful and Wholesome and to our series on the energetic reset. This is part 3, so welcome to part 3. If you have not listened to the first 2 parts, they don't necessarily have to go in order, but I highly recommend listening to them in order. So you can go back and listen to part 1. So in episode 1, we decoded the body's language. In part 2, episode 2, we talked about rebuilding your capacity. In episode 3, the end of this trilogy that we're starting today, is where we are going to rewrite your identity. This is all about identity, because the fact is you cannot lead or create or receive or expand all the things that we are looking to do without that identity burned into your DNA, into your cells. So this episode is where we're going to kind of integrate everything that we've talked about, the minerals, the human design, the nervous system, the frequency field, all of these pieces to help you step in to that identity that can actually hold the 2026 that you're calling in, stepping into this new year. So we're going to talk about how your beliefs and really your current identity shapes your biology, how your energy centers, specifically your undefined centers, help shape your patterns, how your energy field stores the stories that you have outgrown that could be potentially kind of these energy leaks or identity links that are holding you back from this, what you're working to calibrate to, and then how to actually recalibrate your entire system so that your next level is inevitable. It's just going to happen. There's no way it doesn't happen. So this is the recalibration. This is the embodiment. I want to dive into part 3. And first, I want to talk about the biology of your identity, how your identity shapes your biology. So the identity, the I am that you operate from, this shapes your cells. It shapes how your cells operate, how they work. So if you identify as the strong one, the responsible one, the fixer, the doer, the performer, the one who keeps it all together, whatever your identity is, and this could be a pretty subconscious part of you. It might be a conscious part of you, but it might not. The identity that you have accepted about yourself and that you are currently embodying, your minerals are going to reorganize around that identity, right? Your cells are going to move. Your cells are going to organize around that identity. Your nervous system is going to adapt to that identity, and it's going to adapt to have to potentially survive that identity, which is why I talk about this a lot on the show. Our bodies adapt, right? Our bodies are really great at adapting. And so we can think on a conscious level like, oh no, my body is functioning fine, not recognizing that that base level that you have set is really your nervous system being out of whack 24/7, but your body's adapted to that. So potentially you're asking your nervous system to be, and that's like survival is your identity, right? That's the part of your identity. And then your frequency field is going to reflect those same patterns. So you've heard of the term neuroplasticity, kind of changing how our brain works and rewiring. You can change how your brain is rewiring and firing. You can change what genes are turned on and off. This is basically what I'm talking about, because the way that what we are embodying, the identity that we're embodying, can literally change how our cells, how our DNA, how our genes are functioning. And so this is why we feel, right, and still feel stuck, because you didn't change the identity. I had an episode not too long ago. I did this on another podcast, but then I mentioned it on my podcast as well. And I mentioned it maybe in the first part of this series, but I want to say it again. When we are asking our bodies to heal, like when we're really looking for, and I'm not talking about the people who are looking for the quick fixes and the magic pills and all that, which if you're listening to this, I know that's not you, or you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. But for those of us, right, us in the collective, in this community, we're looking to really heal. And we know that this is a holistic job. This is like a mind, body, spirit job. This isn't just a surface level thing. If we're looking to really heal, it does not make logical sense for us to heal while still identifying or still embodying that same identity. Do you see what I mean? We're asking our bodies to heal. We're asking, and the other thing is, a lot of times we're asking our body to heal really deep-seated things. Like it might have taken you 5, 10, 15, perhaps even 20 or 30 years to get to the point where you are right now with what you're experiencing in your physical body. And yet we think that by doing a 3-month or 6-month protocol, all that's going to fix itself, like that's it. That's it. We cannot heal our body in the same body that we went into the process. Is that making sense? So when we are asking to heal holistically, you have to have an identity shift. You can't heal. You can't be the same person at the end of that as you were at the beginning. We have to have the identity shift because you have to become the person who, first of all, who understands their body, who understands how their body works, who understands who feels resourced and knows how to approach when things might feel out of balance, right? That's one part of the identity shift. But then because we're diving into those deep emotional, mental things, at least in the work that I do with my clients, we understand why our physical body got into this place. So for example, I was thinking about a client that I have right now and some things that are the cause, the real emotional root cause of what's happening in her physical body. There's this disconnect and she's wanting to build her business and she's wanting to be big and be seen and be visible, but she has this fear of her relationship falling apart, that she has to stay small to maintain status quo in her relationship. And this fear of if she's seen to her fullest extent, it's still not enough. It's still that fear of like being not enough. Like, what if I really go for it and it's still not enough? So this is the operating system that I talked about in part 2 of this series. This is the operating system that's running the show. Meanwhile, she's dealing with a severely diminished libido, low mood, borderline depression, mood swings, low energy, issues with things like her skin or her hair. Like, she's dealing with all these physical things and her hormones are all out of whack. I'm like, you have completely lost your sacral fire. You are suppressing your life force energy to the max because you have this fear of being seen and being big and how it's going to impact your relationships and your life. And so it's all just getting sucked back in and shoved down. So of course you're experiencing this. So I'm giving you this example for you to understand. In order for her to heal these things, that the libido, the energy, the sleep, the hair, the moodiness, like all these things we're talking about, she has to have an identity shift. Yeah, we're going to do the protocol, right? We're going to do the protocol. We're going to do the supplements. We're going to do all the things. But if we don't identify, which we have, if we don't identify and really get to the bottom of these patterns, she's going to still feel stuck. And that's where she feels right now, where she's like, she knows all the things. Like, she's a health coach herself. Like, I know all these things. She still feels stuck. It's this identity piece. Your identity has to change. So this is a perfect example of what I was saying a second ago, how your minerals organize around that identity, your nervous system adapts to survive that identity, and your frequency field is going to reflect all these same patterns, right? This has happened. This is how she got to where she is, and she's functioning. She's a functioning human. She's got kids. She's got a husband. She's doing all the things. But this is on the inside. It's like her soul is being sucked out of her because she's suppressing her life force energy. So her minerals and her body, her nervous system, her frequency, all of this has organized around that identity, the identity of I have to keep the status quo. I can't be too big or shine too bright because I'm afraid of XYZ. I can't really go for what I want because of XYZ, right? That's the identity that she's accepted. So I give you this example because I want you to understand how your identity shapes your biology, because I think it's so much deeper. Hey, y'all, we'll get right back to the episode. But first, let me ask you this. You've built a vision that others admire, and you've built something that you're really proud of. But behind the scenes, your body feels like it's lagging behind. It just can't quite catch up to your brilliance and your mission that you have. That late night second wind, the foggy mornings, the hormone shifts, the endless push and forcing. You can't strategize your way out of that. And you already know you don't need more supplements. You don't need another supplement stack. You also don't need another side hustle disguised as self-care, because nobody wants to have their health as a side hustle. This is about recalibrating your entire ecosystem. And that's why I created the Quantum Reset, a premium 3-month high-touch healing experience for visionary women who are ready to feel as powerful in their bodies as they do in their business. Inside, we decode your nervous system, your minerals, your hormones. We read your labs like the sacred text that it is, so we have actual answers. And then we pair that with deep energetic recalibration, subconscious release. We use gene keys, we use human design, and true embodied healing. This isn't about fixing burnout, because that's not what we're doing here. This is about becoming the woman whose body is powerful, whose body is completely electric, whose energy, clarity, radiance finally matches the size of her mission. If you know your success isn't meant to cost you your vitality, and you're ready for a science-backed, spirit-led reset, then the quantum reset is your invitation. So check the link in the show notes or send me a message on Instagram, and let's bring your body back online with your brilliance. Now, let's get back to the show. Then the majority of the world and the conventional, especially the conventional world, makes it seem. And really, this is the missing piece of a lot of what happens in the holistic space and the functional medicine world, is understanding this part. Like, yeah, the biology and the physiology and all the things happening on the physical body are important, and we want to know what's happening. But we also have to understand that your identity is shaping that. There's a reason you got here. There's a reason you're here where you are and you're experiencing the things that you are in your physical body. So I want to switch gears here because I want to tie, well, not exactly switch gears, but I want to tie this into the human design piece, which I've been doing in all these episodes in this series. And I want to talk about how your identity leaks, if you will, is connected directly to your human design. And I want to specifically talk about your undefined centers, because I think this is where the leakiest energy is, if you will. And so I want to dive deeper into where your identity drains your energy and how to untangle that, how to unwind. Because it's one thing to understand it, but I want you to understand how to unwind it, give you some things to walk away with from this episode. So knowing your undefined centers, first of all, is important. There's an awareness piece that's really important. So I want to make sure you know that. So if you don't know that already, go get your human design and look at your undefined centers. Remember, these are going to be the ones that aren't filled in or colored in. The deconditioning part, this is the important piece. This is the piece that helps you return to self. And how, like the example I gave of the client, like this is how we start to untangle those patterns, release the energy that's all stuck and stagnant around those patterns, so you can return to self. So I want you to notice which ones land as I go through these undefined centers and kind of what is happening there. And I want you to feel what lands in your body, as if you're just listening to this on a cerebral level, you might miss something. I want you to really see which one lands as truth in your body, because that's the one that's going to tell you, oh, I need to, like, that's mine. I need to focus on this one right now. I need to focus on this one first. So I want to walk you through them one by one. I'm going to start with the head. If you have an undefined head, the energy leak, the identity leak is, I have to solve this. I have to solve this. So the leak is overthinking, idea pressure, mental looping. A lot of times it's addiction to information. Like, I just have to get more and more information. And it can be almost like analysis paralysis and just kind of looping constantly in your mind. So this shows up in real life when you're constantly researching, consuming, strategizing, but you're not moving. Like, you're not taking the action to move and to do anything with it. You're often holding on to questions that honestly aren't yours. Like, they were never even yours. Like, you're trying to answer questions that aren't yours to answer. So when we're deconditioning this part, the question to ask yourself, is this thought mine? Is this my thought? Or am I amplifying somebody else's? Like, is it mine or is it somebody else's? That's the first question to ask. And that sometimes is a tricky one, because there can be so many stories around it where you think it's yours, but it's really not. And then notice where you're seeking answers instead of listening inward. That's the big thing here, I think. I think probably the biggest takeaway from this undefined center is to notice where you're seeking answers instead of listening inward. Where am I staying in my head about things instead of getting into my body and listening to what my body is saying, or my intuition, inner voice, whatever word you want to use there. When you do this, when we reframe it that way, and we kind of shift the perspective, it gives the mind less to solve and it gives the body more to respond to, because that's where the answers are anyway. I mean, how many times have we talked about that on the show? Our mind isn't where we make the decisions. Our mind, like a human design mentor of mine used to talk about the mind as a playground. Like, it can play around ideas up there, but it's not meant to ruminate and spiral and get out of control. And it's not meant to make the decision. The body, you have to give the body more to respond to. So if we're able to ask those questions and really think about and feel, not just think about, but feel, like, where am I seeking answers? Where am I forcing myself to find the answers instead of listening inward? That's going to give the body more to respond to. And that's going to give you the answers you're looking for, because they're in the body. They're not in your head. They're not in your mind. They're in your body. And so if we can practice this, the other thing I want to give you, if you can practice this, and for those of you who are really into your head, this could be very tricky. This might be a lot to ask, but I'm going to say it anyway. I want you to practice. I was going to say a half day, but maybe if you could do maybe it's like a chunk of time. If a half day is like too much for your brain, like, ugh. But I'm going to say it though, a half day of quote thought fasting, like less input, right? Less consuming information and more presence. So maybe this looks like you turning off your phone or social media for like half the day. Can you do that? Or for you, if you're someone who's just constantly consuming information, maybe you're somebody who listens to like a lot of audiobooks or master classes or like, business related strategy business podcast, something like that. If that's someone like where you're like, I can't ever turn it off and there's always something going on. Like I know I did that for a long time where I was so proud of myself a couple years ago. I'm like, oh, I'm going to start, I was trying to be more present and take time away from, step away from the work and all that. Like, oh yeah, I'll go on walks. And I was going on a walk around my neighborhood almost every day, but I was still listening. Like I either had a podcast, like a business podcast in my ear or like a master class or something listening. I was still listening. It wasn't a break. It was just a break from looking at my computer. Thought fasting, as in step away from the consuming and the information, less input, more presence. And then the other thing too, just from a physical body perspective, is looking at supporting your adrenals, right? Magnesium is really important. Sodium is really important. Those are going to be really helpful to support your adrenals and can kind of support that mental quiet. The magnesium is the calming mineral that we've talked about so much. So this could be like consuming, like a capsule, like taking a bit. Could also be like maybe you do a magnesium soak in the bathtub, putting up some salts and in the bathtub and letting that be how you're, relaxing it and also getting your magnesium at the same time, or like a magnesium foot soak. But thinking of ways to support your adrenals while you're supporting the rest. The clarity for you, the upgrade I want to offer you for your identity from the center is clarity is going to arrive when you stop chasing it, when you stop forcing it to be a mental thing and you put it into the body. That's when clarity arrives for you. So I want to move on to the undefined ajna. And this is another really mental one, right? The ajna is like connected to your third eye. This one is I must be certain. I have to be certain. I have to know for sure. The leak looks like needing logic to logic your way out of everything. You need proof. You need logic. You need predictions. And it's the fear. Ultimately, it's the fear of being wrong. I need proof so that I'm not wrong because there's a fear of being wrong. So when you feel this in real life, it looks like you potentially delaying decisions because you're waiting on clarity that never comes. You're waiting for that perfect sign. That's the clarity that I need. You can also, it can look like shape shifting to match whoever sounds convincing. Like, oh yeah, it's kind of that like confirmation bias thing, right? Shape shifting to match whoever sounds convincing because it's just kind of confirming, yeah, that should be right? So when you are stuck in this loop and because for me, the shadow side of this is you separating yourself from your inner truth and from your intuition because your ajna, it's your third eye, like it's your deep connection to intuition and that inner part of you. And so for me, if you're stuck in that loop and the energy is leaking here, it's you being disconnected from your inner truth. You're waiting for that external clarity when it's an inside job, just like the undefined head that I just talked about. You're waiting on someone on the outside to give you the clarity you're looking for, but it comes from inside. And so to decondition this, maybe you start looking at using your authority instead of logic to make decisions. Like that would be the first thing I would say. Can you tune into your authority? Because here's the thing, if you're really tuning into your authority, I would say most of the time, that might be a bold statement, but I think most of the time, it's not going to make logic sense, or a lot of the time at least, it's not going to make logic sense. I don't know, that's especially true for me. I'm a sacral authority, so my response is quick, right? In the moment, I'm going to feel it, and a lot of times it doesn't make logical sense. And I know so many times I don't want to say made the wrong decision because I think all decisions eventually lead you back to your path, right? But a lot of times it's the decision that takes you the roundabout way, right? And you end up making one that brings in a lot more challenges and resistance than it would have otherwise, right? But my point was, I think that so many times making decisions, I've tried to logic my way into the decision instead of listening to my sacral. So maybe it's just starting with one decision, like maybe it's not every decision, but the point is for you to just start tuning into your authority instead of logic, whether you're emotional or self-projected or whatever authority you are. It doesn't have to make logical sense. Can you let that feel safe in your nervous system? Because that's the other thing. Can you let go of the logic and then still feel safe in your body? Can you let that be okay, that it doesn't have to make logical sense? And then if you feel yourself getting stuck in the loop, interrupt that loop with, I don't need to be certain. to make a move. I don't need to be certain to move. I don't need the certainty. I don't need the logic. I don't need the certain. That's the interruption. It's a pattern interrupt. I've talked about pattern interrupts on the show before. We have that. That's how we rewire, if that's hard to say, the brain and the body is we interrupt the loop. We have to interrupt the loop. This is where the rewiring happens. So the pattern interrupt is telling yourself, and maybe it's a mantra. Maybe you write it on your bathroom mirror. You stick it on your computer or something. I don't need to be certain to move. I don't need to be certain, right? And then maybe take some time to journal with this prompt. Where am I outsourcing my authority to my mind? Where am I outsourcing my authority to my mind? Again, your mind is not your authority. It's the body. And the last thing I want to leave you with for this particular center is to maybe it's time to reduce any of the stimulants. And this could be like a stimulant like coffee or caffeine, but also whatever stimulate also could be, maybe it's scrolling on social media. Because a lot of times anxiety can mimic uncertainty. If you're feeling anxious in your body and your mind and you have these anxious feelings, it's going to mimic uncertainty because your nervous system doesn't feel safe. So it's not going to feel clear to feel into a decision, right? So if you can reduce the stimulants and things that might potentially bring on anxiety or a stress response in the body, that can be really helpful. The identity upgrade I want to leave you with for this center is reminding yourself or telling yourself that I lead from my inner truth, not mental agreement. And the head and the ajna go together a lot here because I've talked about the head, that the clarity arises when you stop chasing it because the clarity doesn't come from your head, it comes from your body. And here it is. The ajna, again, this is not a mental thing. It's my inner truth. And I have to be able to listen into my body to find my inner truth. So I want to leave you with that. Moving on to the next one. The solar plexus is the next one I want to talk about. So the energy leak here is the thought or the feeling of I have to avoid emotional waves. In real life, the leak might look like people-pleasing, emotional absorption or suppression, or internalizing other people's feelings, taking them on as your own. It might be saying yes to avoid discomfort or uncomfortable conversations. Usually, a lot of times, it just looks like carrying emotions that don't belong to you, carrying those around as your own. And you don't even realize that you're feeling these and they're not even yours. This solar plexus is such a huge source of deconditioning or a huge opportunity for deconditioning. Because especially, I think I said undefined, the undefined solar plexus, because we do end up absorbing so many things that don't belong to us. And so if you find yourself feeling the heaviness and the weight of that emotional absorption, a lot of times it can lead you to avoid emotional waves or just to avoid emotions altogether. Like I said, there could be a suppression or repression because it's like there's so much in there because you've taken on stuff that's not yours or it doesn't feel safe to feel any of it. So when we start deconditioning the center, the first thing, just like I mentioned in the undefined head, asking yourself, is this mine or is this someone else's? When an emotion comes up, when an emotion arises in your body, ask yourself, is this mine or is this theirs? Is this somebody else's? That's first and foremost. And that might take some time to get clarity on that. And then another thing that I want to offer you for this particular undefined center is to practice little micro boundaries. Can we practice emotional boundaries? And if setting big boundaries, like maybe there's people that you might need to limit your time with or being around them, or maybe there's people that you need to cut out altogether from your life. Like that could be a thing that you're experiencing. If that feels too big and bold at the moment, then maybe practice just little micro boundaries. So it's something like instead of answering right away, doing the people-pleasing thing like you're used to doing, maybe it's, oh, well, let me get back to you. Maybe it's just not making a decision in the moment because you don't feel certain about the decision. So be okay with not giving a decision there. Let me get back to you. Or how about this? You could say no. That's another good way to set micro boundaries is just say no. Another thing I want to offer you for this center is taking time to feel into your emotions and to create space for yourself. So this could look like putting a hand on your chest and your belly and breathing until you feel your baseline returning. But the point is here to allow yourself to not get caught up in the emotional waves, but give yourself some time to create that baseline or to go back to baseline to kind of get to homeostasis before either making a decision or having a conversation with someone or whatever it is. Giving yourself time and not feeling like you have to do something in the moment, in that emotional high or the emotional low or whatever. And then mineral help for this one, I also want to offer. Magnesium and sodium, like I've mentioned before, are the magnesium especially because it is that relaxing mineral, magnesium. But both of these just helping. But I would say I also want to add potassium in there too. But all of these help as electrolytes, so helping that electrical current in the body, helping things like your adrenals and your thyroid and these things, but just helping overall cellular function. Potassium and sodium, all of your cells have those. It's helping things in and out of your cells. So it's going to help you to be able to operate optimally at a cellular level while you may be in an emotional situation or emotional confrontation. So the upgrade I want to offer you here for my undefined solar plexus folks is I hold my field. I get to choose what I carry. And I want you to really embody that one, because especially if you're not someone that's not used to setting emotional boundaries, or maybe you've never set emotional boundaries for yourself, this could be a hard one, because the fact is you do get to choose what you carry. You get to hold your own field, right? You are able to set boundaries and set these parameters of what comes into your energy field, and you have to claim that. The next one I want to talk about, a few more here, is the G center. So the G center here, this is your center for identity, is the leak here is I have to be who they need me to be. I have to be who they need me to be. So this might look like identity bending and like shape shifting your identity to appease people. It might look like direction confusion, just being confused on what direction to go, or even being confused about who you are, like identity wise. I don't know who I am. It could also look like seeking belonging externally. Like I have to find where I belong, and then I might even like shape shift myself so that I feel like I belong, and so that it looks like I belong and they accept me. This is a big one. And this can be, in my head when I'm saying these examples, I'm thinking of like, little kids in elementary school that just want to be accepted, and maybe they want to play with the cool kids or whatever. But the fact is that we do that as adults too. It might not look the same, right? It might not be like the sad kid on the playground who wants to play with the kids that are, but we do that. And it can be very unconscious how we're shape-shifting our identity and bending our identity to be who they need us to be, rather than who we want to be and who we're designed to be. So it could be you adjusting to who you are depending on the room, depending on who I'm with. I'm going to change who I am. It could be you asking yourself, who should I be instead of who am I? Right? That's a big one. That's a big difference. Who should I be instead of who am I? Because the shoulds is never a good idea to live by the shoulds. And this is a perfect way to get out of alignment from your design when we're living by the shoulds. So if you're asking yourself, who should I be in any situation versus who am I? It's a big sign that there's some energy leaks happening there. So for some deconditioning in the center, notice where you're seeking validation through performance, but more specifically through identity performance. Where does it feel like your identity is performative? Or I'm potentially having to act like something or act in a certain way. And where are you seeking validation through that? Where are you pulling out that inner child in you that just wants people to like them? And so you're changing who you are and how you act because of that, because you need that validation. And then I invite you to spend some time in environments where you feel like yourself. Can you put yourself more often than not in environments where you feel like yourself? Whether that's a physical environment where you go, or it's people that you're around, but spend time as much as you can where you feel like yourself to really anchor that in. And then maybe you create this kind of signal, like a self signal for yourself. Maybe it's a song or a scent. Like if you're, especially if you look on your human design and your strongest sense of smell, that could be a good one. Or a movement or a physical thing that you do, whatever it is that anchors your identity. So this, and do that in the moment. Or if you're feeling like out of sorts, like I'm kind of losing myself, maybe it's a specific like essential oil that you like, or candle, or if you're a scent person, maybe it's putting on that song that reminds you, maybe it's right, whatever it is, but have that as your thing, your self signal that really anchors in that identity for yourself. And so the upgrade I want to offer you here, your identity upgrade for this center, if you have this undefined, is to tell yourself, remind yourself, I'm not here to be everyone's person, only my own. I'm not here to be everybody's person, only my own, only mine, me, my identity for me. I'm not here to be everybody's person. Take that, soak that one in. Last two here, your ego center. So your ego center, this is the center for like willpower, right? So, and this is the center where a lot of us have these worthiness things tied up in. So the energy leak here is I must prove that I am enough. I have to prove that I'm enough. This is a big one. The client example I gave earlier, this is a big one for her. She has this undefined. So the energy leak here could look like overworking, overgiving, this kind of compensation energy, like I have to keep giving, right? And this is the big area where our worth is tied to our output. Now, this can still be the case even if you have this defined. I'm not saying that at all because, I did that whole series at the beginning of the year about how we tie our worth to our productivity and our output. And this can be for anybody. It doesn't have to be just people that have this undefined, but it's especially going to come out for those who have it undefined. So you might feel this in real life. It might look like you take on more than you really need to because you have to prove that you can. It might look like rest feeling like a threat to your value. If rest doesn't feel safe, I don't feel valuable if I take a rest. It might look like just overgiving and overdoing it because I'm so afraid of disappointing people. It might look like I always have to go above and beyond because I have to show everybody that I can, because I show everybody that I do the most. That might be another way that it shows up. So when we're deconditioning this, the big thing from this center, whether defined or undefined, but especially undefined, the big thing is to train the body that rest is safe, that worthiness and rest are not, like you don't have to earn it. You don't have to prove anything to get your rest. So take an action this week, or maybe just maybe you can do it one every day. Take an action without earning it. I'm just going to do it because I'm doing it, not because I did anything to earn it. And sometimes when we think like, oh no, I don't feel bad resting, but we think like, well, I have to complete all these things before I can rest. So maybe it looks like you stopping a task in the middle. Heaven forbid you do that. Stop a task without completing it. Oh my gosh. Do that and take a rest or go do something fun. And you didn't earn it. I didn't complete the thing, so I didn't earn this. I'm just doing it because I'm doing it. So maybe it looks like that. And then let something be easy. No proving, no extra proving or performing, but can you just let something be easy? Can we not overcomplicate things and tie all these stories about it needing to be hard or needing to sacrifice or self-sacrifice to do X, Y, Z? Can you just let something be easy? Can you practice saying no without an explanation, without giving a reason, without going into a whole story? Do you find yourself doing that? Because that could be another sign of this proving energy. Someone asks if you can do this thing and you feel I have to say no and then give a whole explanation as to why. Can we do that without an explanation? Can you just say, no, sorry, I can't. That's it. Period. The end. That's a big one. That can be hard. Try it. And one more thing I want to offer you here is, can you track when you override need with obligation, right? Can you track that? When you override need with obligation, when am I doing things out of feeling obligated, like I have to? Right? Track that. The identity upgrade I want to offer you here for everyone, even if you don't have this undefined, I want this to land in your body as well. My worth is inherent and proof is just optional. My worth is inherent and proof is optional. I don't need proof. I know that it's inherent. I don't need anybody to tell me. I don't need anybody to show me. I don't need anything. I know that my worth is inherent. Okay, last one I want to talk about is your undefined root. And this is a huge one because it's tied to our adrenals. And so this is a huge driver of burnout. And now there's things that compounded in this kind of a compound thing here. There's multiple things working at once. But the fact is that the undefined root is a big driver of this. So the undefined root says, I must hurry. The shadow side says, I have to hurry. After I have to catch up or I'm getting behind. So if you have an undefined root, it's a pressure center, right? Our root center is a pressure center, and your pressure of an undefined root is external. So if you have it defined, it's an internal pressure. You're telling yourself it's this internal drive. It's external from if an undefined root. And so it looks like urgency. It looks like doing things in urgency because you feel like you're behind. You got to catch up with everybody else from this external pressure. So it can look like urgency loops. It can look like rushing. And just kind of this adrenaline-driven productivity. I'm just running on pure adrenaline, and that's why I keep going and I can't stop. Because I feel like if I stop, I'm going to get behind and, et cetera. The loop keeps going. So this looks like you have to speed up for the relief of the pressure and not the results. So you feel a pressure to speed up because you need to relieve the pressure. Like, I just need to get rid of the pressure, so I just got to keep doing, go faster and faster and faster. And that's what it looks like. I was in that one for a long time. And then the other thing it looks like is stillness feels like failure. It feels like this is not right. So slowing down or stillness just doesn't feel good. Doesn't feel safe, and it feels like failure. So if you're stuck in those urgency loops, if you're stuck in that hypervigilance, you're stuck in that chasing the adrenaline rush and the dopamine hits of doing and being and not stopping and I got to keep going. That's the undefined root. I got to hurry. I got to keep going. And this can be a really tough one because your root center is the center for safety and groundedness. So if we're lacking that, that's the foundation of all of the centers. So we're lacking that. All the other ones are going to be out of whack as well. So when we're deconditioning the root center, the undefined root, I want you to work on creating structured pauses throughout your day. So whether that's a pause to take a few breaths, maybe it's a pause to take a sip of your favorite beverage at your desk while you're working or out or whatever. Maybe it's a pause to check in with your body. Like, how am I feeling right now in this moment? How often do we do that? Probably not enough. Maybe it's a time to check in with your authority, especially if you're making a decision. Maybe it's a pause just to step away and change your environment for a little bit. Can you create structured pauses throughout your day? Maybe you start with just a couple. If this is a whole new concept for you, maybe you just start with a couple, and it's not a lot. So it's not going to overwhelm you and your pauses feel like in your nervous system. But can you create these structured pauses to, again, this is like training your body that I can take a rest, I can take a break, and it feels okay. Here's another one I want to offer you. Can you replace urgency with responsiveness? Instead of everything being urgent, can I replace that with responsiveness? I'm going to respond to this rather than having this urgent, hypervigilant energy around it. Now, mineral support, I've mentioned this before. I'm going to say it again, though. We want to support your adrenals, sodium, potassium, magnesium. Those are going to be the best for adrenal recalibration, especially sodium. And the thing is, our adrenals use more sodium than any other part of the body. And if our adrenals aren't functioning great, then you're just running through your sodium stores. So we really want to hone in on that. And then the last one I want to offer you, is to schedule. And this kind of goes with this structured pauses that I mentioned a second ago. But I want you to schedule spaciousness like it's a task. Because it is like it's a revenue task. Like, this is a thing that's going to help me make my business more successful because it is. So maybe it's something that you literally have to block off, 30 minutes on your calendar or an hour, whatever, to just have spaciousness, whether it's going outside and just sitting outside and drinking a cup of tea. Maybe it's going into the garden and doing something. Maybe it's going for a nature walk. Maybe it's just sitting in the quiet. Like, for me right now, it's holiday season, and it's okay. I just want to sit, like, turn on the light, the Christmas tree, and sit, have my cup of tea and sit by the tree. Maybe it's reading a book. Like, that's one of my favorite things right now to do, is it feels festive and cozy and homey. And like, how can you schedule spaciousness like it's a revenue task? Like, this is part of my day, is to schedule this space. If you find yourself scheduling block after block after block on your schedule, this is a problem. We need to create spaciousness. So the identity upgrade I want to offer you for this center is telling yourself, reminding yourself, teaching yourself, training yourself. I move from safety and not pressure. I move from safety and not pressure. It's a big one. So I hope you got something out of all of that from your undefined centers. And after listening to all those, I want you to ask yourself, which of these centers do you feel like holds your deepest identity leak? Like, which one or two, or maybe all of them if you have all those undefined, but which one spoke to you the most? Like, what do you feel like landed the deepest with you? And then what belief, you might have to journal on this, contemplate, meditate on this, but what belief has been running your operating system without your consent? Which of those beliefs that I said for each of those centers, which one has been running your operating system without your consent? And then also contemplate this, think about this. Who do you get to become when that belief dissolves? Who do you get to become? What is possible when you allow that belief or beliefs to dissolve, and really feel into that? And all of this right here, this is that identity level healing. This is how we build the capacity for more. And the other thing I want to offer you is using rest as an identity upgrade. I've talked about rest already. I've talked about it in this episode. But this one is really one that you have to let land. And I can't talk about this enough because I feel like this is something that's so underestimated and undervalued in how we work and how we operate. And I did a podcast interview yesterday, and we were talking about this we were talking about when we go back to the basics, right? And a lot of people don't want to go back to the basics when it comes to, health and healing their body, like, hydration and sleep and rest and getting outside, moving around, like the basics, the boring stuff, the unsexy stuff that people are like, oh yeah. And we talked about rest, and the consensus was, we were talking about this, and what I told them was, I really feel like rest if we understood, we as humans, when I say we, I just mean like us as humans, especially in the Western world, maybe it's the best way to say it, in the high, fast-paced culture. If we as humans would really prioritize rest and slowness and stillness, I really feel like that would change everything. I feel like it would change the world, because rest is the repatterning. Rest is when you rest without guilt. When you stop tying it to productivity or earning or like a transactional thing. When you choose rest and slowing down and stillness before burnout, this is where you shift from rest when I deserve it to I rest because I'm worthy. Like you're not worthy because you don't rest. You don't have to earn it. I rest because I am worthy. And this is what changes everything. Someone asked me a couple weeks ago, what do you think is the most common emotional driver of, chronic illness, chronic disease, chronic symptoms? And I don't really like to speak in generalities, so I'll say 99.9% of the time. I really believe it comes down to worthiness. Now, it looks different for everybody. I've talked about this before. It's dressed up in different costumes and it looks different. But I really do think it all comes down to worthiness. The overworking, the people pleasing, the over outputting, the never stopping, the feeling bad resting, the not using my voice, fear of disappointment. Like I could go down the list. All of those come down to worthiness. All of them do. There's all some strand in there, common thread, and it's about worthiness. And so this is why I think if as a human collective, if we really prioritize the rest and the slowing down, the stillness, it would change everything, is because it would rewire all of our worthiness wounds. That would be what it would do. That would be the end result. Rewiring our worthiness wounds is how we rewire the body and how we heal chronic symptoms, chronic illness, chronic disease. And if we could reel in, because here's the thing with rest. Yes, not only is this the repatterning, but when we rest and we prioritize slowing down and stillness, this is also how we tune back into the body. We have become so disconnected from our bodies. And the only way to connect back into that is if we create the space, the stillness to listen into it. We keep ourselves busy for multiple reasons. And one of the big reasons is because we're afraid of what's going to happen if we slow down. Is everything going to fall apart? Am I going to lose momentum? Am I going to fail? Also, I don't know, what am I going to be thinking and feeling when I allow myself to sit down and be still and slow down? And what's going to come up for me? I have to feel my emotions now? I don't want to do that. That's another thing we're avoiding. So when you shift from I rest when I deserve it to I rest because I am worthy, everything shifts. This identity shifts everything. Your stress hormones, your minerals, your inflammatory levels, your decision-making clarity, your creative power, your magnetism, your life force, everything shifts, everything recalibrates. This is the identity shift. It comes in the rest. I know this is, again, not this big exciting thing. You're waiting for me to give you the silver bullet. This is it. This is the magic bullet. This is the magic pill. It's rest. That's it. And we're all waiting for it. We've all been wanting to know what it is. This is it. Rest is what recalibrates your identity. Identity is what recalibrates your energy. And your energy is what recalibrates your reality. That's where it happens. That's where it happens. So I want to leave you with this at the end of 2025. And I want you to bring this into 2026 with you to really, really hone into this piece and to discover what it means to live slowly. What does it mean what is slow living? What does that mean? There's a gal I follow on Substack. That's the name of her page. I love that. The Art of Slow Living. I love that. What does that mean? We're so used to going fast. We're so used to doing everything fast and having to get there faster and beat Joe Blow down the road because, right, we're so used to having to, it's all competition. Who can go fastest? Who can be the busiest? Who can get there? Really what we're doing is who can get into the grave the fastest. I mean, that's really, if you want to know what's happening there, that's what's happening because we're just self-sacrificing, driving our bodies into the ground and we're sucking the life force energy out of ourselves. No life force energy. Life force cannot function like that when you're driving on urgency and adrenaline and cortisol and dopamine. Zero life force energy in that. Zero soul. This doesn't happen. So can you take into 2026 with you? Can you take this and make this a goal? It's going to look different for everybody. How does slowing down, how does slow living look for you in 2026? More presence. How does that look for you in the new year? How is that going to shift your identity? and your energy and your reality in the new year. Let it start with the rest and the slowing down and the stillness. Create more stillness in your day. Create more rest in your day. Create more presence. Slow down. And I'm saying that to you just as much as I'm saying it to me. I was talking about this last week with a gal, and she was asking, what does success look like for you? And I said, if you would have asked me this, honestly, even just a few years ago, it would have been a completely different answer. But that's really what I'm taking into 2026 with me. That, for me, that is what success looks like now. I even got emotional when she asked the question. Like, I feel like emotions rising in my body and in my throat when she asked the question. I was answering it because I recognize how much that has shifted for me and how far I've come in how I define that for myself. And I recognize how much I sacrificed for a long time when I was just doing everything as fast as I could and trying to get there fast. That for me, the success, that's a big part of it for me now. And that's what I'm taking into 2026. It's slow living. It's slowing down. And I think for a long time, I was afraid to slow down and rest because I was afraid. The worthiness thing was a big piece for me, but it's also afraid of what is everybody think I'm lazy? And is everybody think I'm not working hard? I'm not earning, X, Y, Z, or I'm not earning, right? There's this whole thing about having it. You have to earn your success, right? You have to earn your success and all that. Maybe it's because I'm closer to 40 now than I've ever been before, but I say I'm throwing that out the window, and who freaking cares? So now I am going to embrace the art of slow living. Rest and stillness and slowness are going to be what drives me. That's a measure of my success. How present can I be? How much stillness and rest can I cultivate into my week? And I invite you to do the same. And like I said, it's going to look different for everybody because depending on where you are on the nervous system scale, the rest and stillness, it may not feel safe to your nervous system right away. So it might take you some time, but I think we can get there. And I think that when powerful women, when visionary women, when magnetic women can own this part of them, we can collectively heal our worthiness wounds that all of us were born with, and we can change the world with that. If we don't have these worthiness wounds standing in our way and holding us back from becoming the big world changers that we're here to be, we're unstoppable. And I really, really, truly, honestly, to my core believe that. And I think that is what's going to change the world. And so I want to leave you with this for the end of this series and potentially my last episode of 2026. Who knows? I might do another one before the year's over. We'll see what my sickle says. I want you to ask yourself, I want to leave you with some kind of self-activation journal prompts for you. What identity am I still performing that my body can no longer hold? Where am I performing? What identity am I still performing that my body can no longer hold or that's no longer serving me? What is the identity of the woman who can hold the vision I have for 2026? That one might take you a while to answer. I invite you to go deep into that one. How does her body feel? How does she rest? How does she create time for spaciousness and stillness? How does she make decisions? And then what frequency does she radiate? Take some time on those. And then just to anchor this in, if you're driving, don't close your eyes. But if you're in a space, you can maybe close your eyes and maybe put your hand somewhere in your body. I want you to claim this for yourself as we close this out. I release the identities that my nervous system cannot hold. I choose the version of me that's aligned with expansion and clarity and overflow. I calibrate to her frequency now. I want you to let your energy and your body feel it. And if you are ready to live from the identity and the nervous system and the minerals and the hormones and the energy field of the woman you know you're meant to be, then I invite you to come into the quantum reset with me in 2026, because this is where it all comes together. There's links in the show notes. The quantum reset is my big comprehensive program where we're putting all the pieces together. We're doing the labs and the Healy device sessions and diving deep into your human design and all the things. If you're not ready for that, of course, I have my frequency recalibration sessions or energy reboot sessions. And those are kind of just a first step into that full body, full frequency alignment. So you can find links to that in the show notes as well. But I'm here to help you rewrite your operating system for 2026. And beyond. I don't want to limit it to that. So let's say 2026 and beyond. And I'm here to support you in any way that I can. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for sticking with me through this series. I would love to hear your takeaways. If you want to DM me on Instagram, that's also in the show notes. I'm at the Hope Petraza. You can send me an email. Whether you want to work together or not is not. I love hearing from Manny Jen. So responding is, I love to respond. So I love hearing what's landing for you, what you're taking away, what you're stepping into 2026. I would love to hear that. So share with me. And thank you for another really fun year on the podcast. And I'm excited for what's next. So happy New Year, y'all.